Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics common to both the PowerBasic console and Windows compilers. Today we will look again at using an object library to manipulate a Microsoft Excel workbook. This was our application at the end of the last video. In today's video, we're going to look again at our Excel spreadsheet. I've added 3 lines to the top of our Excel spreadsheet. This is to simulate us receiving an Excel spreadsheet which, although it contains the data we want in the first worksheet, it has 3 rows we're not interested in at the top of the sheet. Rows 1, 2 and 3, while they are relevant for somebody looking at the spreadsheet, are not relevant for our processing, and we want to remove them so that the very first line in the spreadsheet is our header line. So we're going to amend our application to remove these 3 rows from the top of the spreadsheet. Additionally, we will be adding extra rows to the spreadsheet, inserting them between data that already exists, and inserting a new column in the spreadsheet. So let's have a look at the code. The code we'll be running today is running in the PowerBasic console compiler. However, this code will run just as well in the PowerBasic Windows compiler. At the beginning of our code are a number of include files: the Common Display Library, the PBXL Include Library, and the PBXL Functions Library. The PBXL Functions Library will be shipping with this application. The PBXL Include file is generated by the PowerBasic COM browser. For those of you who haven't watched the previous videos, I'm going to summarize how you generate that file for yourself. If you go up to the Tools menu and click on PowerBasic COM browser, this will give you a list of all the registered libraries that we could, in theory, create include files for. Now, Excel itself is not on this list, but we can discover where to look to find it. If we right-click on our icon, and right-click on Excel, and go to Properties. This gives us the location of the Excel binary. If we copy that, and click on the Open icon, we can paste the path we've just got into there, and we can click Open. This will now generate an include file for you. Once it is prepared, we can then save that as the include file to our disk. So there is our include file. This contains all the information we need to access Excel. So we can click on Save As, and we can save that back to our code project. That's what I did in the previous videos. To save the file is pb_excel.include. So now that we have that in place, how will we go about removing these 3 rows from the top of our spreadsheet? As we will see from the spreadsheet, they occupy rows 1, 2 and 3. So we will comment out the function we used in the last video. And today we're going to create a brand new function whose job it is to remove these rows. And we're going to call this new function remove headers. It will take a single parameter, which is the path and the name of our Excel file. Once we have removed the 3 rows from the beginning of our file, we will then want to save the spreadsheet. And as we did in the previous video, we're going to be saving it to a file called updated. So right at the beginning of our code, we will ensure that that file does not exist in our folder. By using a simple try-catch block, we can effectively kill off that file. So let's create our new function. As we did in our previous videos, we're going to set up 3 objects to allow us to manipulate the Excel worksheet. The first Excel app is for loading Excel itself. The Excel workbook is for loading the spreadsheet file. And the Excel worksheet is to load the worksheet inside that workbook. In addition, we're going to be using some local variables in order to keep track of the row and column, the sheet number, the error, and the data. Now that we've created those, we'll now have to put some plumbing into our code. We first have to open Excel as an application. After that, we will then open the workbook that we've specified, and then we will open the worksheet. This is exactly the same as we did in our previous video. So we're using the common function to open Excel app, passing it the two parameters, the object we want to populate, and the error should one exist. We're then using the Open Excel Workbook function, followed by the Open Excel Worksheet function. And we're referencing sheet number 1. And sheet number 1 is this data here, what appears in the My File sheet. So now that we have Excel loaded, what can we do to remove these offending rows? We're going to do this by using a range in Excel. We're going to specify a range from A1 to A3. This defines the top 3 rows of the spreadsheet. And we're going to be creating a new function in our library whose task will be to delete Excel rows. This function will take 3 parameters as usual. It will take the Excel worksheet object, it will take our string, which is the range we wish to delete, and it will optionally pass back an str error message should one occur. If this function returns true, then our rows have been successfully deleted. If this returns false, then we have been not successful in deleting our rows. And adding on to the end of this function are the usual handlers for where problems have occurred, where the worksheet has not loaded, or you cannot open the workbook, or Excel itself cannot be opened. And the final task is to close the Excel app, which will close down access to the Excel spreadsheet and free up the resources we've employed in order to access it. We also need to declare this new variable, strRange. So now we need to create in our library this new function, this delete Excel rows function. So let's look at our library. So here we are in the library, and we've created the header for delete Excel rows. This, as I have said, takes the 3 parameters, the worksheet object, the range we wish to delete, and a variable which will be populated should an error occur. So as the variables we're passing to Excel will have to be variants, we will create a local variable for the range and a local variable for the error. We will then populate this variant range variable with the variable that's been passed in as a string. As we want to perform an action on this spreadsheet, we're going to be using object call today. So we're calling using Excel worksheet, which is the object which we have already populated. We're going to be using a range, and this range is defined by the vRange variable. This tells Excel what we're going to be working on. We next have to tell Excel what we want it to do with that range. So we want this action to apply to the entire row, in this case 3 rows. And finally we need to tell Excel what we want to do with those rows. In this case we wish to delete them completely. And in this one line of code we're telling Excel to delete the 3 rows. We then have to test to make sure whether Excel managed to carry out this task or not. As we did in previous videos, we're using a test on the object result. This will allow us to determine whether we managed to delete the range successfully or whether we have not. If we delete it successfully, we can return true to our calling function. So with these few lines of code, we should be able to delete these 3 rows in Excel. Let's just compile our code to make sure it compiles cleanly, which it does. And since we've already got Excel loaded, we will unload Excel to allow our application to instantiate it. So there is our executable, which we have just compiled, and there is our spreadsheet. We try running the code now. It will tell us it's opened Excel successfully, it's opened a workgroup, and it's telling us the rows have been deleted. Now we have not yet saved the spreadsheet, so there is nowhere to go and look to confirm that the deletion has been successful. So we will now plug in a piece of code which will save our spreadsheet to a new file name. As we did in the previous video, we're going to be doing this by first of all setting a name and a path to the new spreadsheet called updated.xlsx. We're setting the file format in this case to be the OpenXML workbook format. We can then use the function save Excel worksheet, which exists in our function library, which we created in a previous video, to attempt to save the worksheet to disk. If this returns true, it will have worked. If it returns false, it will have not. So let's compile that and try running the code. So if we look at the spreadsheet before we've run anything, we will see we have these 3 lines of data at the top above our main data section. So if we run our Excel spreadsheets application now, it will tell us it is opened and it's saying that the rows have been deleted and the worksheet has been saved successfully. So there is our new updated XLSX. And if we open that up, we will see that the rows of data at the top above our main data section have now disappeared and all the data has been moved further up. So we have successfully deleted 3 rows of data from the top of a spreadsheet. So using this range approach allows you to delete information from anywhere in the spreadsheet. Having deleted the 3 rows from the top of the spreadsheet, let's assume that we needed to insert a brand new column into that sheet. We have an E column which currently contains the I color. If we want to insert a new column in there and move the I color and the blood group 1 column to the right, we want to create a new function whose job it will be to insert a brand new column. So we're going to take exactly the same kind of approach as with the deleted Excel rows. We're going to define a range, which in this case is E1, so that will be the entire E column. We're going to call a new function called insertExcelColumn, and we're passing it the same 3 variables: the worksheet object, the range, and the error should one occur. If this returns true, then we will have inserted our new column successfully. So let's add that new function into our library. The beginning of this function is exactly the same as the delete Excel rows. We're passing the 3 parameters, we're setting up a local variable as a variant to handle the range, and we're populating that with the value the user has passed in the strRange variable. As before, we're using an object call on the Excel worksheet object with the range. Having specified the range we wish to operate on, whereas before we used the entire row, we're now going to use the entire column. And this time we're using the entire column insert. And as we did before, we now have to test to see whether the object call was successful or not. And again, you'll see a pattern forming here. We're using a test on the object result once more. This allows us to tell whether the object call was successful or not. So if we try compiling that now, and we go back to our binary, and double click on it. So this is now telling us that the rows have been deleted and the new column has been inserted. If we have a look at the spreadsheet, we will see that the E column is now entirely blank, and what used to be in that column is moved to the right. So we have now successfully inserted a brand new column which we can then populate. So as well as inserting brand new columns, can we insert brand new rows? We're going to take the same approach again. We'll create a new function called insertExcelRow, taking again the same 3 parameters: the worksheet object, the range, and an strError variable. So in our library, we will create this new function. As before, it's taking the same 3 variables: the worksheet, the range, and the error. We're then changing the range into a variant. And again, we're going to be calling object call for the worksheet and the range. Only this time, we're using entire row insert. And again, we'll test the value of object result to see whether it worked or not. So if this returns true, we will have successfully managed to insert a brand new row. Moving all the rows there one down. So if we run our application again, it will tell us we have deleted rows, inserted a new column, and inserted a brand new row. So let's have a look at the spreadsheet. And we will see that there's a blank row on row 5. If we compare this to the original spreadsheet, we can see our new spreadsheet has lost the top 3 rows. The data that was on row 7 is now on row 4, and the data which was in row 8 has now been inserted down to row 6, leaving a blank row on row 5. So in summary, today we have seen how to remove rows from the top of our spreadsheet. We can also insert a brand new row in the spreadsheet, moving all the other rows one down, and we've also managed to insert a new column in the spreadsheet, moving all the columns one to the right. So this is a short introduction to some of the things we can do with worksheet ranges. Hopefully you'll find this code useful in your applications, but that's it for today. Thank you for watching.